Hello everyone, my name is Sayam Pathak and this is Simplify. And today I have a very special guest, Giri, who is from the product team at Cast AI. So, Giri, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. Nice to be here.
So, to kick things off, I would want to break things down to the basics. Let's go down to the basics. Like in the Kubernetes ecosystem, what role does monitoring play? Like, let's start from monitoring. For what role does monitoring play, and how do you differ it from the automation?
Sure, yeah. So monitoring has been around for a while. So I'll just focus on Kubernetes, what it's essential for. So basically, real-time visibility into anything happening within the cluster. It could be performance, it could be security, application health, how the resources are being utilized, and what people use monitoring for is to identify any type of inefficiencies if they want to optimize resources and also reduce cost. So monitoring could help you do that. And one additional use case with monitoring is it plays a key role in enhancing security. So you can detect any kind of anomalies. If the traffic spikes for a reason which you don't expect to, then that could be a security anomaly. So yeah, those are some advantages and benefits of monitoring.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. So yes, we deploy Kubernetes clusters. We have a lot of Kubernetes clusters, and then we have the monitoring layer on the Kubernetes clusters that give us the insights. Like we have Prometheus, we have Grafana, we have different tooling to get the metrics and get the analysis of the Kubernetes cluster, like what is actually happening. So where do you think many teams stop at the monitoring and they fail to get the automation side of things right? Like, what is the next logical step? Because now we have some of the tooling in place, but what are the key things which is missing, and what do you think seems to be the next logical step here?
Sure. So it's not the fact that teams don't like automation or they don't embrace automation. Currently, they do automate a lot of things, but they do it only for things that have been tried and tested for a long time. Legacy use cases, things like Ansible, Terraform have been around for a while, so they're very comfortable doing that, and they know where it starts, where it stops, and where it will break, where it won't break. So the thing with automation for once you monitor something, automation for resource optimization is they're just reluctant to embrace it for these kind of use cases like resource management, cost optimization, and even security. So those are things that people don't want to try yet. There are companies or teams doing it, but traditions always resist change. That's what we say when you think about new technologies, right? So there are some common misconceptions, right? When uh, these things were typically owned by IT admins or sysadmins, if you like to call them, within data centers, and now we have it under DevOps and or platform engineers and also developers. There is also, so in Kubernetes there is also this finger pointing where developers say, hey, you are responsible as a DevOps engineer, you are responsible for resource management, but DevOps will point their fingers back at the developer saying, no, you are responsible. Yeah, so that's one thing that we've noticed, and that's the reason for both reluctancy and also the misconceptions about automation.
So basically, we have the monitoring systems in place, but those are only to get what's wrong with the applications that we deploy, and we are not thinking about the larger picture, the broader picture over here, and get insights to resource optimize the Kubernetes clusters or save cost, or how do we connect all these things together. So could you share some examples where you think the monitoring and the automation have resulted in the missed opportunities for the organization, specifically from the cost savings perspective? Because I think Cost AI kind of have leaded the front with respect to the cost optimization, resource optimization. So where do you see these challenges? Like what all things are getting missed when it comes to the cost optimization sides?
So I would, think about things like spot instances, for example, right? Most of our customers, when they come to us, what they say is, "Hey, we missed so many things within cost optimization because we were not automating few things." And one example, like I said, is something like spot instance. You know, AWS or all these public clouds, they provide very little time period when they, first of all, what is pod instance? It's a discounted compute instance that these cloud providers give you. But there's a catch in that you could only use it for certain amount of time, and then when they wanted when they want to take it back, they give you just like 2 minutes or less than 2 minutes. So you would have to move your application somewhere else, move your workload somewhere else. And teams were doing this in a kind of half baked automated way, and they never really had a solution in place to completely automate the whole spot instance management. Yeah, so that's like a missed opportunity that a lot of customers who talk to Cast AI have told us.
So Cast AI, if I see it correctly, it provides you the holistic view for your Kubernetes clusters by not only observing the issues, but also covering the major things like you mentioned, resource resizing or rebalancing, however you call it, and then how do you getting the cost insights from the workloads or from the nodes, and then trying to see how to optimize this cost, and then also security angle. So if you can just give a gist of all these things, like what all these things are in cost, what is rebalancing, how the right sizing works as a unified solution, and breaking down the components together.
Sure. So let's do this in two sections. So one is cost monitoring. So that's something that a lot of cost optimization solutions offer. So that stops at basically dashboards and insights. We spoke a lot about monitoring. So this is what cost monitoring is all about. Uh, it'll give you resource usage, what's the current trend, and even maybe what's the future trend within your clusters and within your workloads. It'll give you a nice breakdown view of all these details. But then at the end of the day, you as an engineer or a DevOps or cloud architect, whatever you want to call, you have to go and fix these things. Whatever recommendations that you see in these solutions, you have to manually go and fix these things. And that's where Cast AI comes in. And we discuss things like you spoke about rebalancing and workload right sizing. What are these things? So rebalancing is nothing but the way to minimize resource fragmentation. Think about a simple setup where you have 3 nodes and you have maybe 8 pods. I'm just randomly throwing out numbers here. If these pods are not placed in these nodes in the most optimal way, maybe you could remove one of the nodes and put all the 8 nodes within 8 pods within 2 nodes. So that is what rebalancing does. So what it can do is lower cost and also maintain high availability. And when you talk about workload right sizing, you're not doing it at the node level, you're doing it at the workload level. So what this will do is it'll adjust things like resources like CPU and memory that are allocated to workloads. So Cast AI will, read this pattern of how these workloads behave for a particular period of time. You can customize this. So it'll get all these real-time metrics to fine-tune resource allocation. And then through a combination of HPA, which is horizontal pod autoscalers, or vertical pod autoscalers, it'll, automatically right size the workload. And the end goal for both rebalancing and workload right sizing is the outcome is reduced cost.
Okay, so yeah, the end goal is reducing cost, and that is being done by right sizing of the workloads and rebalancing, and also the uses of spot instances. So you mentioned spot instances. Spot instances are cheap, and but one of the risky things with spot instances is the potential disruptions. Like it can go away anytime. So how does Fast AI try to mitigate that particular risk? Because in a Kubernetes workload, if I'm running something, and if Fast AI as a platform suggests that this can be migrated to or rebalanced to a spot instances, yes, definitely it saves you maybe 50% or whatever percentage of the cost is. But how do Fast AI try to mitigate the risks and ensure that the cost efficiency is there, but the disruptions are not there?
Yeah. So great question. And this is, one common question and fear that most of our customers and prospects have when we talk about spot instances. So we have a couple of things. One is a nice fallback mechanism. So what Cast AI does is it supports a fallback mechanism where the spot instances go back to on-demand nodes in case there is nothing available. So we always look for. So we have tons of data about how spot instances have behaved and typically behave in AWS or Azure and Google Cloud. Maybe a tidbit that I will share here is if you go to our website, we also have a spot instance availability map. So that's actually a very cool resource that a lot of users appreciate. So yeah, basically, I mean, we have a fallback mechanism, and our autoscaler will temporarily add an on-demand node. So that's basically what's happening behind the scenes. It'll add an on-demand node and just for your spot instance workload to run. And once it's available again, we'll put these on-demand nodes back to spot instances. So that's one thing. And there's also a thing about spot diversity. So we talk about different types of instances, and we always think about on-demand. But even within spot instances, there is a wide variety of instance types, and Cast AI actually supports this wide variety. So that means you can actually move from one instance to a different type of spot instance when maybe you probably assume that it's not available. And there's a lot of bells and whistles that come with the Cast AI spot instance configuration, where based on your use case, you could even use spot instances for, let's say, not just to control cost, even to get it better performance. You could actually sort these instances in a way that you want better performing, faster CPUs than focus on cost. So there are a lot of things that it will do with spot instances.
Well, that's pretty interesting, and I think that answers a lot of questions on how you manage the potential disruptions with the spot instances. And I think using spot instances become one of the key factors in saving like large amount of costing over there, and also yeah, right sizing of the workloads. So uh, let's tie it into something that you have done. So if I say, um, is there any customer success story that you want to share or you can share with the people watching on how everything that you said have worked in practice and how much roughly they have saved in terms of cost?
Sure. I mean, most customers that use Cast AI and start with the savings. So we promise 50%. That's what our website says. But there's a lot of customers who have reached 60% or up to 80% savings. Now, of course, all this is subject to the type of applications you're on, what's your your FinOps strategy and all that. But let's get to success stories and what people have told about Cast. So one interesting case study that we did, and we spoke to this customer. What they said was, this is very interesting. They were doing mindless drudgery work. This is like exactly quoting this customer. So every year, so 2 weeks of their work goes into upgrading Kubernetes versions for all their environments, and they were doing this manually. So they use Cast AI, of course, for all. There are a lot of other use cases that they use Cast AI for, but this particular feature and the ability to do this automatically just blew their minds away, and they were uh, really happy. There was one guy on their team who actually threatened to leave the company because he was so bored doing this every year. So even with the limited, the problem is what happens with this kind of thing. Imagine 2 weeks, you could do a lot of things. You could try out new solutions. You could probably make your CI/CD pipeline better. You could automate a few other things that you never got the time for. So that's one particular success story. And of course, there's also this company called Yorko, which deals with marketing software, and they found amazing success with our spot instance, especially during Black Friday. So they have these peak traffic periods where most customers will be hesitant to use spot instances during these events like Black Friday, or let's say there's like an important sporting event. There's going to be a lot of betting for a gaming company. So these kind of workloads, people are hesitant to move to spot instances, but with Cast AI and with all the automation around spot instances, there's been a lot of success around these scenarios.
So when you say a lot of automation, and when we talk about big enterprises and we try to do a lot of automations over there, then people are a bit hesitant, like whether it'll impact certain stuff, or should we do any automations over there. So what are the knobs that they have the control of, and how Castria ensures the smooth automation once you are on board.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely hesitancy because, like I said, people are not willing to uh, embrace change. But we've had success with so many companies, like big enterprises to small startups, uh, like financial organizations, which are in very regulated industries. Because these guys, they have to have a fallback mechanism, and they have to make sure that if something goes wrong, they need to quickly recover from the failed state. So we've had success with these companies. So that itself is like a credibility factor for Cast AI. And our POCs are very detailed. So once you want to, first you could try the solution out for free, and then once you're interested, what we do is a very detailed POC with the customer. So we have in-house Kubernetes experts, and they know the pain behind manually doing all these stuff. So what they do is sit with these users and explain how Cast AI works, and also the trust these customers have in Cast AI is what makes us deliver and uh, deliver better solutions.
So one interesting thing that I want to ask, and maybe it's kind of a different angle. So from the developers' productivity, so we say a lot of automation is there. We say, we have systems in place, we have monitoring, and now with Cost AI, we have monitoring plus we have the automation, and we are doing a lot of things. Have you seen any impact to the developer productivity when you have this solution in place?
So we actually don't target the developers per se. So what we do is Cast AI typically works with the DevOps or the platform teams, because developers do their own thing about the working on applications which need to go to production and which needs to get into the customer's hands. So that's actually one of the reasons why Cast AI is successful, because developers think they are the ones who own the part of resource management, and we have something called the sandbagging effect. Developers usually, let's say they uh, provision 30% of resources. DevOps come in and they'll add 30% more. And this cascading effect finally goes to about 60%. And then what you see is underutilization. So typically Cast AI and the use cases around what we have is mostly targeted towards the DevOps community and not much for developers.
Great. Those are some really interesting insights, Giri. So, wanted to understand what new Castia is working on. For example, we had KubeCon North America. Were there any interesting announcements that Castia did for the new stuff? And we are having KubeCon India, which is coming up, and I see Castia presence over there as well. So, what new stuff Castia is kind of working on? We talked about the cost observability. We talked about having the holistic view of cloud cost optimization. So we have the monitoring, we have the optimization. What else do we have? New stuff with Castria.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be happy to answer that, because we believe we are taking a playbook out of the all the security players out there. People are talking about platformization. If you look at Palo Alto Networks, platform making it a platform solution has really helped them. So I see that's the future. I see companies expanding to solutions outside just monitoring and resource automation and adjacent areas. So what we're doing at Castia, we already launched really cool products this year. Two new products. So one is AI enabler. So we started something early in the year. We launched, maybe I would like to call it the early access phase, where we had few customers interested and signed up for that feature. But now we've actually released the product. And there's another Kubernetes security solution that we also launched probably around, I think, 3 months ago. So those are two new solutions within the Cast AI platform, and there's actually going to be much more coming out early next year. So we are super excited here, and there's a lot of work that Cast AI is doing. We've also grown twice compared to last year. The company size has grown, and yeah, looking forward to all the great things that we're going to offer.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you have the monitoring, you have the optimization, and you have entered the space of AI as an enabler, and also the Kubernetes and container security. So targeting the key four areas of the day two operations after we provision the Kubernetes clusters. Well, that's pretty impressive. Uh, Giri had a really nice and interesting conversation with you. One key thing, like if there is one key takeaway that you think listeners would want to remember from today's conversation, what would that be?
I would say, don't do manual work for resource optimization. That'll be my takeaway. It's almost, we are in 2024. People have been talking about automation for, so many decades now. And finally, things are turning around, and, companies like Castia, they're making this a reality. But, uh, jokes aside, there's a lot of innovation happening in cloud native and Kubernetes. For some reason, I never got to meet you at KubeCon, but you would have seen, the amount of excitement in the community. But what one key takeaway I would say is over provisioning is still rampant. So, I spoke about Cast AI expanding to other solutions like AI enabler, security, and all that. But let's just stick to cost optimization, because end of the day, you want your cloud cost to go down. Over provisioning is still rampant. So we're coming up with our 2025 state of Kubernetes cost report next year, early next year. So what we saw last year was only 13% of resources are actually provisioned. We keep telling people this. Anyone who stops at our KubeCon booth, we keep telling them 87% of wasted resources. That's like insane. So that's what we keep reminding people. It's not insignificant. And I would say, imagine all the possibilities that will come from these savings. That's all I have to, say to people out there. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So do not over provision your clusters, and if someone needs to try out Cast AI, how do they do? Like just going to Cast AI and start a free trial. That's
Yeah,
accurate.
simple. Just, go to the website. You can sign up with your Gmail, get a free trial. We always have this, demo cluster running continuously. So you could start with monitoring and see how things work. And yeah,
Awesome.
for it's been
So I'll put the links in the description of the video. And thank you so much, Girish. It was so nice talking to you, speaking to you about the optimization, the cloud monitoring, Kubernetes monitoring, and cloud cost optimization from that. And now the two new solutions on security and AI. Would love to meet your team at KubeCon India. I'll be there and understand in deep dive how these work.
sure. Yeah, I had a great time. Thanks for meeting, and stay safe. I've heard that KubeCon, is in Delhi. So make sure you take your masks.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary, and
Thanks.